Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrology. Hello, how are you? Mercury is still retrograding until the 25th, so I'm very aware of this. And at the moment, I'm having a massive clear out in my office. This is the sort of thing that suits a Mercury retrograde. And in the clearing out, I discovered some things. Well, I'm mostly clearing out paperwork, so we've got a shredding company coming in a week or so, and I've got client records that go back to a long time, so 30 years. So I'm destroying and gonna have shredded the clients that go back more than 10 years ago. I'm also getting rid of old bank statements, and because I'm self-employed, I only need to keep those for 5 years, I think it is, and client notes legally I only need to keep them for 7 years. However, I've made the executive decision to keep the client notes for people that were born in the 1990s because they're indigos and they're still alive and living and probably might need some help at some point in the future. And in all of the clearing out, we got stuff out of the loft, which is just genuinely a fateful thing to do. And I didn't know I had up there some old piano music from the 1800s, would you believe? That obviously I collected at some point. And so I've been sort of trying to go on YouTube and see if those songs still exist. And one of them was on there. It was actually lovely. And that's a song that I know how to sing and I can still play. But some of them I've never even bloody heard of. The beautiful, beautiful piano music with beautiful covers. I mean, part of piano music then in the 1800s was it had to look good because you were going to go into a shop and bloody well buy it. You weren't buying it online. So there's absolutely wonderful illustrations on that. I've got no idea what the music's like yet until I plonk it on the piano. But anyway, these are all Mercury retrograde things, digging stuff out from the past. And I found, which I know I've already got, a tape of myself singing, which I'm not going to subject you to, but I might share on Instagram at some point, because I'm contemplating revitalising my, not singing career, because it was never a career, it was a hobby. Anyway, nothing to do with that. We're now doing astrology. Now today, we're going to be talking about 3 people's charts. One of them is still alive and 2 of them are in heaven. And the reason I'm sharing them today is because they were people that lived to be more than 100 years old. So getting to 100 in and of itself is, in my book, pretty incredible. But if you're going to live to be if you're going to live to be older than 100 years old, then there's obviously something wonderful about you in some way. And so my question to myself was, which is what I'm going to be considering today, is there anything astrologically that would denominate that somebody is capable of living a particularly long life? And what does it what does it all boil down to? I'll get my mouth back in a minute. Now, just so you know, the average life expectancy of a female in the UK is 82.9. I don't know where that number came from. And for a bloke, it's about 5 years less than that. So that's an average, and averages mean nothing really because you can have extremes of each side of it. But the 3 people that we're going to be talking about today is Jeanne Calment, who was born in 1875, Maria Branyas, who is still alive and lives in the US, and where's Henry gone? Come back, Henry. And Henry Allingham, who was born in the UK, and he was born in 1896. So we've got one person born in 1870 something, one born in 1890 something, one born in 1907. We do need to take into account the outer planets, because my question to myself was, are the outer planets of any significance to a long life or not, or is it a purely random thing? Now, having read a few articles about long life, the lady that lived the longest, which is Jeanne, I don't know how you pronounce it, Jeanne or Jeanne? Jeanne, let me just see if I can Google the actual correct pronouncement, because I hate to pronounce things wrongly. Oh, I got that wrong. It's Jeanne. So Jeanne Calment. Now, what I did read about her a long time ago. Not the reason that she lived a long time, a contributory factor to her old age was the fact that she never had a job. She came from a reasonably well-off family, suffered some sort of an amount of stresses in her life, but nothing too radical, and basically had enough money to be able to do things that she enjoyed. And I've got a lovely quote here from another lady that we're going to be talking about. Hold on, let me just get her quote. Now, this is a quote of the last lady that we're going to be considering. So the third lady we're looking at, and who's still alive. And she is quoted in The Guardian as saying the things that contribute to a good and healthy life are, and actually I'd agree with these: order, tranquility, good connection with family and friends, contact with nature, emotional stability, no worries, no regrets, lots of positivity, and here's the key one: staying away from toxic people. So we're talking about longevity, okay? So she says stay away from toxic people, go out in nature. Now these are things that she has experienced herself, and I would be in complete agreement with that, which is why when I work with clients, a lot of the times I'm helping with some sort of emotional issue that they might have, because if they don't have that emotional issue or that stress or whatever, then their lives are going to be slightly happier, because stress is the biggest cause of brain wobbliness. So we're going to start with, how was her pronunciation again? Jeanne? I've forgotten how to pronounce it. 1 minute. Jeanne. So it's Jane in French is Jeanne. So Jeanne Calment was born on the 21st of February 1875. We've got a birth time for her of 7 a.m. and she was born in somewhere called Arles. Arles or Arles in France. And so we've got Sun sign Capricorn and Moon in Virgo. Mercury retrograde. Yay, I've got Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde in Pisces, 16 degrees, directly in opposition to the Moon, because the Moon's 13 degrees. We've got Venus in Capricorn, Mars in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Scorpio, Saturn in Aquarius, Uranus in Leo, Neptune in Aries, Pluto in Taurus. The true node is 18 degrees Aries and Chiron is 19 degrees Aries. So Chiron and the north node are conjunct. It's pretty cute. We've got an exact time of her passing, which we won't look at straight away. Come on now, let's just talk about her life before we talk about her passing. And she has got 3 retrograde planets. She's got Mercury, Jupiter and Uranus are retrograde. Now, chart shape wise, she's a sort of a splishy, splashy splosh. She's got the majority of her planets all the way around the circle. She does have a grand trine in Earth. Now, I'm of the opinion that having Earth in your chart is important, and if you don't, then do some Earth work. Now, that's just something I recommend to people. Back in the day, I used to do written chart analysis for people. People don't want them anymore. Now, those are quite a few of the things that have gone in the bin, all the equipment for that. I'd print it off and put a pretty cover on it and do a chart analysis for someone. I don't write them anymore. They take far too long to do, and hey, you can Google an awful lot of this, and yeah, people don't want them anymore. But when I was writing those, I would have a segment in it devoted to the elements that are in the chart, and I feel it's necessary to have, this is just my opinion, I feel it's necessary to have all of them, so fire, air, earth and water, and earth being one of the more important ones because we're living on earth. If we have a hell of a lot of air in our chart and not much else, it can be more tricky to be grounded, and I am definitely of the opinion that being grounded is super important if we want to live on this earth. Now, if you want to be a little fairy, that's fine, or a butterfly even. She's got lots of aspects, but because she doesn't have an aspect between the sun and the moon, not that it matters, but there is no aspect between the sun and the moon, even though they're both immutable signs and they're in opposite signs, because the sun sign's only 2 degrees Pisces, so she's an early bird Pisces. And anyway, she's a February born baby, so she's a February born baby. We've got enough oppositions in the chart to have her be able to consider other points of view, and her sun sign and her Saturn in equal house are located in the 12th. So Saturn's in Aquarius, Saturn's happy in Aquarius, the sun in Pisces is happy in the 12th house, so this isn't someone that's going to be courting fame and fortune and stuff. Well, maybe they are, but they're not. That's not their wired to do that. And the sun in Pisces in the 12th is happy there, so this is somebody that could be a recluse, but obviously wasn't because she lived to be so old. Mercury's not conjunct the ascendant, but is in the first, and it is in Pisces. She is quoted as saying quite a few weird things, one of which I think I read about her ages ago, and I might have mentioned her on the podcast, but I can't find the episode where I did. She talked about the eggs that she ate every day. Like, she ate a ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous amount of eggs. Now, don't get the idea that eating loads of eggs is going to help you live a long time. I don't really think that's the case. But anyway, she did. And I remember reading a long time ago her doctor saying that he really feared the day that she was going to die, because he felt that people would have a go at him, that it's his responsibility to keep her as alive as possible for as long as possible. Anyway, so we've got a grand trine, we've got oppositions, we've got a few squares, we've not got much in the way of conjunctions between the actual planets themselves, which you won't have if you've got a splash or a splay chart, because everything is dotted around, and the only conjunctions that are there are the North Node and Chiron. North Node's in the 2nd, which is to do with finances, and as I already mentioned, she came from a reasonably well-off family. She didn't sort of stress on the dosh and never had to earn any herself, and I can't remember if she had kids. Hold on a minute. Oh, yes, she did. She had one daughter called Yvonne, who was born in 1898 and lived to 1934. So can you imagine growing up and then your children dying before you, which actually has happened to a number of people that live to be over 100. So that's just sort of par for the course if you live that amount of time. So going back to Jeanne's chart, she's a mutable sign, and there's enough going on in her chart to sort of keep her busy. Now, talking about chart shapes, it's never a bad thing. I'll put that in the positive. It's a good thing to remember your chart shapes. And the reason being is that even if you don't know someone's time of birth, you can glance at the chart and know in a second or two, well, I know immediately, but this, whatever, what the energies in the person is like. So somebody with a very clustered chart, they're going to be really focused on things. Somebody with a splishy, splashy chart, like this lady, everything's all around the circle, so a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Somebody with a seesaw chart, like, oh, I'm going to do this, oh, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. The locomotive is like, ew, 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 sort of a weird sort of energy in the chart. Bowl, bucket is, I'm so focused on this, though, they're focused on this thing, but bing, I'm going to go off and do something else. And does their chart shape match their sun sign? So, for instance, if you are a Scorpio and you've got a splishy, splashy chart with all your flipping planets all around the circle and not a sort of distraction, that isn't what a focused, fixed sign likes. The happiest Scorpios that I've come across are the ones with bowl, bucket, one-sided charts, clusters, because they can really hone their skills into one area. The unhappiest Scorpios, I know it depends on the moon sign, of course, where their planets are all over the place, because that isn't how Scorpio energy works. So you can also make a astrological diagnosis of someone's chart to see if their chart shape fits their sun sign. Okay, I'm not even taking the moon into account here, I'm just taking the sun sign. Yeah, so the signs of the zodiac that don't mind and quite benefit by splishy splashy everything all over the place charts are the mutable signs. Yeah, fixed signs much prefer to have everything all in one place, maybe a little bit off the scale here or there. Cardinal signs, I don't think chart shapes so much of an issue for them anyway. I've not come across cardinal signs that specifically need a certain chart shape, but definitely between the mutables and the fixed. The mutables operate more successfully as mutables with splishy splashy charts, and the fixed signs operate more successfully with some sort of cluster somewhere in their chart that they can put the majority of their focus in. Okay, so hope that helps. So what do we know about Jeanne? So she's born in France. She outlived her daughter and her grandson, and she what's the main things you need to know? She used to get up at 8 o'clock. She would either have coffee with milk or hot chocolate instead of a solid breakfast, and at noon her father would pick her up from school to have lunch at home before she returned to school for the afternoon. So it sounds like she had a nice enough childhood, and there's sort of quite a bit of blurb about what her daily routine is and her medical checkups, and was she actually that age, and it's a typical sort of Pisces thing, like, is what they've written about me true? And I've put a link in the show notes to a YouTube video where there's I don't know who the person is in the video, but there's her in the video, and there's somebody yelling into her right ear. So she's a little bit hard of hearing, and he's asking her very specific questions rather than open questions. Tell me about it. And she's sort of going oui, and just sort of saying yes to them, which is rather funny. She washed herself unassisted with a flannel cloth rather than taking a shower, applying first soap, then olive oil and powder to her face. She washed her own glass and cutlery before proceeding to lunch. Oh, why have we even got this in Wikipedia? So it's got anything to do with, it's her daily routine. I did read that she didn't start smoking until she was, I don't know, something like 100, but she didn't smoke when she was little because that was just unacceptable for a lady back in the day. Now, we've got her time and date of birth. So we've got this young lady that lives to be, so her actual age at death was precisely 122 years and 164 days, and is the world's oldest verified person. So that's 122. That's a long flipping life. I mean, you can't complain if you're going to live that long. One also assumes that the care home that she ended up in, they looked after her there, because you hear these horror stories about what happens to people. Anyway, so what have we got? So the time of birth is 4th of August 97 at 10 o'clock in the morning, so it's sort of decent time of day. And it doesn't actually, it said she died of unspecified causes because she'd had zillions of medical checks over the years. But let's have a look at the astrology of it. So the ascendant for the time that she's born is Virgo. okay? And she's got moon in Virgo, and the ascendant's really not that far away from her moon, because the ascendant is 20 degrees Virgo and her moon is 13. So it's only 7 degrees apart. The transiting north node is exactly conjunct the ascendant. Is that right? North node. Where's my north node gone? Yeah, 20. Yeah, the north node's exactly conjunct the ascendant. That was clever. How'd you manage that? Venus is transiting in Virgo and Mercury's transiting Virgo, because she died in August, so Mercury is there. So we've got Mercury near to the moon, and she natally has her moon in the 7th. So that's quite a nice pass, I would have thought. So somebody must have been talking to her. I bet they were talking to her while she was dying. I'm sure she didn't get discovered in a bedroom by a member of staff 40 years later. The sun is exactly conjunct her Uranus. I don't think that's not going to cause you to die, and there isn't anything in this chart that we could say, oh, that caused her to die, because we have to remember that astrology doesn't cause death. Okay, so get that one straight out of your head now. I almost had an argument with somebody about that the other day. And I've talked about death charts before. We need to look at, what was nice, what was difficult, what planet helped them over to the other side. I could safely say in this combo of charts, because I put it up as a synastry, that Venus is what took her away, because she definitely was surrounded by people that really loved her. So it's evident by the amount of sort of, if you just even look at that teeny little clip, and she's in the care home, and eventually a member of staff comes to wheel her wheelchair out of the room, and they're being very, very nice to her. We have got transiting Jupiter is exactly conjunct her natal Saturn. Transiting Jupiter is 17 degrees and her natal Saturn's 18, and Jupiter is retrograding. Now, just in a normal day of the week type of thing, when transiting Jupiter conjuncts your natal Saturn, it's dark night of the soul. And equally, when Saturn transits your natal Jupiter, it's a dark night of the soul. That's if you just take those two planets on their own, you don't take anything else into account. But as I say, for the time that she passes, we've got that Virgo ascendant, and Mercury and Venus are there, so her needs are being met. I would have thought, I don't know, it wasn't out of death. We've got transiting Saturn is exactly conjunct her north node. Her north node is in Aries, and transiting Saturn is retrograde. So there's a number of planets that are retrograding. Saturn's retrograde, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. So all the outer planets are ganging up and retrograding on the day that she dies. Pluto's not far from her natal Mars, and Mars is where we get her energy from. And her Mars is in Sagittarius, and transiting Pluto is 2 degrees, and her natal Mars is 4 degrees. So one would presume, I don't know, does Wikipedia tell us, did she get weaker towards the end? What led up to her passing? It says, died of unspecified causes. The New York Times quoted somebody as saying that she'd been in good health, though almost blind and deaf, as little as a month before her death. Good health, although blind and deaf, a little as a month before. Which doesn't actually say what actually happened at that precise moment. At the age of 118, she was submitted to repeated neurophysiological tests and a CT scan. The test showed that her verbal memory and language fluency were comparable to those of persons with the same level of education in their 80s and 90s. Frontal lobe functions were relatively spared from deterioration. There was no evidence of progressive neurological disease, depressive symptoms or other functional illnesses. Her cognitive functioning was observed to improve slightly over the 6-month period. Calment reportedly remained mentally sharp until the end of her life. She sounded quite bossy in that little video clip. She's telling the nurse to push her and move her and whatever. Not in a bossy way, but just sort of in a firm way. So that's a long life, and that is our first chart for today. Now, Now we're going to cover Henry Allingham. The reason I've chosen him is that he lived a long life, but also he was born in the UK, and I live in the UK, so it's quite fun sometimes. Fun, is that the right word? Learning about people that are from the same country as myself. Now, he was born on the 6th of June, 1896. He was a Gemini. He's got a Virgo ascendant, and he's got Sun conjunct Mercury. Oh, he's got Mercury retrograde as well. It's interesting. Please don't take that as a signature for somebody living a long time. And he's got Saturn retrograde, Uranus retrograde at birth. So it's got 3 retrograde planets. We've got the Sun making a nice sextile to the Moon. We've got Sun conjunct Mercury, Sun conjunct Venus. So he's got a bucket chart, and even though he's a mutable sign, he hasn't got a splishy splashy chart like Jeanne. So yeah, he has got a yod, and he's got only a few squares. One square was Jeanne had a number of squares. He's got a square between Jupiter and Saturn. Okay, so we've got a Virgo ascendant. Well, actually, I just need to quickly go back in that case because I missed that off. Jeanne had Pisces ascendant. Ruler to it is the old-fashioned ruler is Jupiter, which is retrograde in the 8th, and modern ruler, which is Neptune, in the 2nd. So I forgot to mention that. Apologies. Henry has a Virgo ascendant. Ruler to that is Mercury. Mercury's retrograde in the 10th. So I think a lot of his life was centered around, I think he was, he's probably in the First World War, and he was in the Second World War. I don't know if he actually fought in the Second World War, but so he's an English supercentenarian, the longest lived man ever recorded from the United Kingdom, a First World War veteran, and for 1 month the verified oldest living man in the world. He's also the 2nd oldest military veteran ever, and at the time of his death was the 12th verified oldest man of all time. So he's broken a couple of old records there. He was the oldest ever surviving member of the British Armed Forces and one of the last surviving veterans of the First World War. He was the last survivor of the Battle of Jutland, the last surviving member of the Royal Naval Air Service, and the last surviving founding member of the Royal Air Force. Well, that's quite a lot of considerable things to be the last person in. In 2001, he became the face of the First World War Veterans Association and made frequent public appearances to ensure that awareness of the sacrifices of the First World War were not lost to modern generations. He received many honours and awards for his First World War service and towards the end of his life, his longevity. So he wanted to join the war effort in August 1914 as a dispatch rider, but his critically ill mother managed to persuade him to stay at home and look after her. However, after his mother died in 1915, aged 42, he enlisted with the Royal Navy Air Service. Blah. So he did quite a bit in the war. He got sort of more famous. He ended up in an old people's home. Did he? Where did he end up? He credits cigarettes, whiskey and wild women and a good sense of humour for his longevity. Ha ha ha. And when they also asked about his long life, he said, "I don't know, but I would say be as good as you possibly can." Bless. Let's talk about his death. Died of natural causes in his sleep, so we'll cover his death in a minute. Funeral, I don't want to know about the funeral. So he was awarded with various different war medals, etc. But because the ruler, now the reason I'm checking on that, so the ruler in his chart is Mercury. Mercury is located in the 10th. The 10th is career. He spent his life talking about his career, which was forces based. Yeah. Mercury is conjunct to Neptune. Did he tell the truth? And we have got Sun conjunct Neptune. So I'd have to ask that as well. We have to be careful when the Sun's conjunct to Neptune. What is truth? Question mark. Moon in the 8th. It's not really going to tell you how he feels. Conjunct Mars. Moon's conjunct Mars, yeah. And he's got Saturn conjunct Uranus in separate houses. Isn't that interesting? So he's got Saturn in the 2nd and Uranus in the 3rd. But yeah, ruler to his chart is definitely Mercury. And then we've got Jupiter in Leo in the 11th. Now, the uppermost question is, did he marry? Oh, we've got some juicy bits here. So he met his wife in 1918 and they married when she was 24 and he was 22. And they moved to Eastbourne in Sussex in 61 and remained married until she died there from acute and chronic lymphatic leukemia. They had 2 daughters, Betty, born in 1921, that was the year my mum was born, and Jeanne, born in 1923, who lived to 2001. Jeanne emigrated to the United States after she married a World War II veteran soldier and died aged 78 in 2001. At the time of his death, Allingham believed that Betty had died. He'd lost touch with her in the 1970s following a family rift after the death of his wife in 1971. However, she was still alive, age 88, when her father died, and he was living in Stroud in Gloucestershire. In addition to Betty, at the time of his death, Allingham had 7 grandchildren, 16 great-grandchildren, 14 great-great-grandchildren, and 1 great-great-great-grandchild when he died. Goodness me, it's going to keep you busy, isn't it? Now, once again, we have a death chart for him. So I've done a synastry with his natal chart and what happened when he passed. Okay, so we've got Saturn is exactly on his ascendant. So Saturn's in the mix. It was for Jeanne that transiting Jupiter was on a natal Saturn. I say Saturn's not going to kill you, but it might be around somewhere. Have we got much about the circumstances leading up to his passing? Hold on, because I want to see what's the predominant planet. 1 minute. It doesn't appear that he was ill leading up to his passing. And so on the date that he dies, because he dies on the 18th of July 2009 at 3:10 in the morning, that's quite early. You sort of wonder, how did they know what that time was? Somebody must have been with him. The ascendant is just into Cancer, I think. Yeah, it's 0 degrees Cancer. So the ascendant would have been passing leading up to there. Venus, oh look, that's nice. Venus is transiting Venus exactly conjunct his sun sign. Transiting Mars is exactly conjunct to his natal Venus. But Venus took him away just like it did with Jeanne, and the moon is 29 degrees Taurus, and then it's just going to ping into Gemini a few minutes later. But Saturn's exactly conjunct to his ascendant. Exactly, so Saturn is 17 degrees and his ascendant is 16 degrees 56 minutes. I don't think there's any other planets involved there. No. He's apparently quoted as saying that he had wanted to donate his body to science after he popped it, but he got talked out of it by somebody or other. So that's Henry. And he has got a very bucket chart, and there's that right little cluster up there. I mean, the sun actually natally is in the 9th, is that right? So yeah, he did like travel. There's that awful thing where they say, join the army or the navy or whatever it is, go to other countries, see the world and kill people, ha ha. And his sun's conjunct to the MC, and the ruler to his chart is in the 10th, so he did talk an awful lot about the forces that he was in. Doesn't seem to have, and he fell out with one member of the family as well, so family wasn't his thing, work was. Now, our third chart today is a lady that is still living. This is Maria Branyas, and she was born on the 4th of March, the Pisces, 1907. And once again, we've got a bit of a splashy chart. In fact, I'm just wondering if that's more a locomotive. But we have got a grand trine in there, and the sun and the moon make a very nice trine like that. So this is somebody that's not at war with themselves. Now, we don't have a time of birth. I've done 6 a.m, which is strange because she's born in California. You would have thought the birth time would be written on a birth certificate somewhere. You've got birth certificates in the US, haven't you? Sun conjunct Saturn. We got Mercury in Aries, so Mercury's out of sign to the Sun, but the Sun and Saturn are very, very, very conjunct. You've got Sun square Mars, so Mars is Saggy. Ignore the MC on that chart that I'm using whole sign. But we have got Moon in Scorpio. Now, I had an auntie who had Moon in Scorpio and she was Aquarius. I don't know if I can't remember if the Sun and Moon was square, but she lived to be 90 plus. And you certainly didn't piss her off if you come across somebody and you give them a hard time, they've got Moon in Scorpio, you're going to know all about it. We've got some oppositions, we've got squares, we've got fire, air, earth, water, we've got all the elements. Oh, I didn't mention that for Henry. He's got, no earth. There we go. Even though he lived a long time, he didn't have earth. Look, not apart from the ascendant, which is in an earth sign. He's got so much mutable air. Look at that. So Maria has all the elements. She's got them nicely mixed, and she's the lady who I quoted at the beginning about her view on life, and I'll repeat it so you can remember it. Order, tranquility, good connection with family and friends, contact with nature, emotional stability, no worries, no regrets, lots of positivity, and staying away from toxic people. I think these are things that we all need to make sure that we can get in our lives. The worries and the regrets, those are, I'm not going to say easy, that's the wrong word, but they're things that can be resolved. Yeah. Contact with nature, we can all do that. It doesn't matter if we live in a city, we can still go somewhere where there's a tree somewhere or something. Family and friends, once again, somebody will have given birth to us, so there's going to be some family somewhere, and if we haven't got a family, we can adopt another one. I mean, we don't have to always consider adoption as being we adopt a child. We could do it the other way around. You can adopt parents and grandparents if you want to. Go out and socialise with people. Depends on your chart. So let's learn a little bit about Maria and what she's up to. She does seem to be quite a cheerful bunny. There's a lovely picture on her Wikipedia page of her there with her 117th birthday cake. And she's looking quite cute in the picture. She's blowing out the candles. So she was born in San Francisco, California. She was part of an expatriate Spanish family of Catalan origin. She married a traumatologist. What the heck is a traumatologist? These funny things. Oh, trauma medicine. Okay, that makes sense. She had 3 children. One unfortunately died in a tractor accident, age 86. So she became a supercentenarian in 2017, which is achieved by about 1 in 1,000 centenarians. In March 2020, she became the then oldest person to recover from COVID. Poor love. In an interview for The Observer, she called for better treatment of the elderly. The pandemic has revealed that older people are the forgotten ones of our society. That is particularly true. They fought their whole lives, sacrificed their sacrificed time and their dreams for today's quality of life. They didn't deserve to leave the world in this way. So she's recently become the subject of scientific research as a result of her maintaining good health and memory despite her advanced age. She became the last surviving validated American-born person born before 1909, following the death of Edith Ciccarelli on the 22nd of February 2024. So she's travelled to Egypt, Italy, the Netherlands and England, and took up sewing, music and reading. In 2000, at the age of 93, she moved to a nursing home in Olot, Catalonia after contracting pneumonia. She was described as an active resident there, continued to perform exercise until her mobility deteriorated. She played the piano until she was 108 and now uses a voice-to-text platform to communicate due to hearing loss, and she has 11 grandchildren. Well done to her. So we have got, I think, predominantly in her chart. So Henry's predominant thing that would stand out for me is that he's got the yod. So he's a little bit at war with himself in a way. She's got a grand trine, and Jeanne, however you pronounce it. Oopsie. She's the thing that stood out for me. Again, she's got the grand trine. Her grand trine was in earth. Maria's grand trine is in water. Bless. So trines seem to be quite friendly things, but they don't indicate that you're going to live a long time, because as we know, Henry lived to be a considerable age. In fact, his actual age, which I haven't mentioned, was 113 years and 42 days. So today we've been talking about centenarians, people that live to be over 100, so you can get to 100. I mean, the Queen Mother, I think, lived to be just 100 and something or other. And is there anything in particular in the chart that would indicate someone's going to live a long time? I think those grand trines are helpful, but I haven't done zillions of charts. I'm only using 3 examples today. So if you know anybody, or you've got a member of your family that's lived an awfully long time, we can definitely analyse their chart a bit, and maybe we can come to conclusions about things. I think we have to be very aware of making sweeping generalisations about longevity, because you could have a very nice chart and then be involved in a war. You know, what can you do then? You're just innocently sitting there in your house and poof, your hand gets blown up. So whether or not that, I doubt that'll show up in your chart. But anyway, I hope you have a fab week, and I will be back next week. If you're not already following me on Instagram, then do ping over there. But try not to just follow me. Can you send me a little DM as well? So click follow and I'll know it's you. But send me a DM as well, because I'm getting quite a lot of blokes following me that are single and have got dogs, and photographs of themselves, tanned bodies, doing some sort of sports, and they're in some sort of forces or whatever, and I'm blocking them because obviously they think I'm single, and I'm very happily married, thank you. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.